Dah dapat dah? Hello?
Dapat apa doktor?
Result from physio.
Dah.
Okay. Right. So, congratulations lah siapa yang score. Okay. Saya ada sedikit kesedihan lah sebab waktu final last tu kan, saya dah bagi hint dah soalan keluar. Saya kata okay, yang ini penting. Tapi ada some of you yang dapat tangkap lah. Ada few yang tak dapat tangkap lah, tapi that's fine. Okay. So for this semester, I'm going to be teaching you me again, right? Terpaksa lah korang berhadapan dengan saya lagi kan, right? Whether you like or not, okay. Yeah, I'm going to be teaching this with Dr. Razik lah. Okay. For the plant propagation, right? For plant propagation ni kan, okay. I have created iTaklim punya file, okay. I have uploaded all the lecture note from lecture 1 to lecture 7, and you can also see the course outline in the iTaklim, okay. And then course outline too, you can go and see back, see and review, okay. This is what the course is all about, right? And point penting that is going to be the content of the subject ada dalam course outline, okay. And then tapi saya scroll dululah kat sini part of my responsibility to briefly explain what is course what the content of this course outline of our subject. Alright, so like I say, the course outline is not something like a plain paper, okay. It has objective ataupun justification why we do have the course outline. Course outline punya file, alright, documents, okay. You can see of the course outline outcomes, okay. Outcome ni is the objective lah, alright. The objective of this subject, plant propagation, okay. So the objective of this subject is to provide you a good understanding in plant propagation lah, alright. So the learning outcomes, you know, the end of the subject, end of the lecture ataupun end of the course, alright. This is the learning outcomes, okay, that you need to get from us, okay. Ada 4 kat sini, okay, different courses, ada different learning outcomes. Okay, sorry, propagation ada 3 learning outcomes. Okay, first you can you have to make sure you to understand and can explain plant growth and understand the basic principles and method of propagation. Okay, explain the needs for plant propagation in horticulture university. Right, apply various methods of plant propagation, including using micropropagation techniques, and explain the best form of propagation for selected plants. Okay, so ada apa purpose dia, kenapa learning course learning outcome ni kat atas sekali, right? Because this is the most important things that we need to highlight, that kita kena make sure you ada a good understanding on these learning outcomes. Okay, so how the lecturer is going to deliver knowledge, alright, so that you can understand lah the content of the topics, right, in a way that make you understand and then can have a very good learning outcome based on the course outline lah. Alright. So bila kita buat learning outcomes, okay, we expect you to have these learning outcomes. Okay, we want to test you whether you understand or not. Okay, whether you have got the learning outcomes or not. Alright, if you have a good understandings of the learning outcomes, okay, kalau maknanya kalau kita, for example, the lecture, I give you the lecture on ada quiz, ada lab report, bla bla bla. Alright, so so sebab tu kita ada assessment. Alright, ada quiz, ada assignment, ada presentation. So all the assessment method dia tak boleh lari, means that we have to, the lecturer have to craft, okay, do the narrative examination, okay, macam mana kita nak validate atau measure your understanding based on your three learning outcomes. So kita tak akan tanya keluar daripada learning outcomes. Okay, so all the assessment ni akan based on the learning outcomes. Okay, kita tak ada tiba-tiba tanya, the lecturer should not be asking something that outside from the learning outcomes. Okay, randomly kita pasal planet ke kan, so it will not be possible lah, because at the end of the day all this assessment, alright, all the assessment ataupun assignments that you will send to us to be marked, at the end of the day kami juga akan di audit. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, means that soalan semua, okay, assignment ke assessment, any assessment will be based on that three learning outcomes. So make sure you understand of these three learning outcomes. Okay, and then the method of weightage. Okay, quizzes ada 5, means that in this course we're gonna be having 2 quiz. Okay, 2 quizzes, one from me, one from Dr. Aziz. Okay, ataupun boleh jadi 2 daripada saya. Alright, so ada 2 quizzes, so means that half each of quiz will carry half of the total marks of 5 lah, right? Means that 2.5 marks per quiz. Okay, and then lab report and field trip reports, we should have field trip. Okay, tapi I'm not sure the regulation and the rules and regulation keep changing, so we're not sure in the next 14 weeks how is it be going in terms of the rules and regulation by the UIA. And even though UIA kata okay, we still have to get the consent from party that we are going to be visiting lah, right? Dr. Aziz is a course coordinator. Dia akan bagi decision whether we gonna be going for a field trip or not. Okay, and then assignment and presentation. Alright, assignments and presentation, because of it is assignments, ada S, alright, kita akan ada 2 lah assignments. Okay, presentation ni biasanya kita buat 1, right? So akan ada 2 assignment, 1 presentation. Okay, so total assignments and presentation will be 20 marks. Okay, presentation could be 8, have to discuss back with Dr. Aziz. Okay, tapi I think at the moment mungkin assignment 5 marks, total assignment is 10 marks, and then presentation is 10 marks. Right, midterm examination is 15 marks. Okay, final examination is 40 marks. Okay, so midterm examination is will be from me, totally 100% from me. Okay, my allocation is 7 lectures. Okay, but the lecture that are going to be included in the midterms only the first 5 lecture, right? So lecture 6 and 7 will be carried into the final exam. Okay. Okay, you can see in the course content what are the topics in the course content. issue, right? You can see it later lah, right? So from my part, 7 weeks, all the lecture have been uploaded into iTaklim. Okay, any question about the running course of this plan propagation? Ada soalan before I start lecture lah? Ada any question tak?
Tak ada.
Okay, so basically I can assume that you semua ni faham lah, alright? Not the format, I means the important points that you boleh consider lah when you do the revision ke, okay? When you do the assignment ke and blah blah, right? Salah satu yang saya dapat tangkap waktu marking your final exam in during plan physio, okay? Okay, ada I think one or two of you, okay, scored a very good cam, okay, cam, I mean per 60, okay, scored a very good cam. Tapi waktu final tu saya tak tahu, tiba-tiba memang agak lompong lah, yang mengejutkan saya lah, right? So sekarang you boleh expect apa yang mungkin akan masuk final. If you think that you got difficulties, right, in terms of the knowledge ke lecture ke, tolong get back to us lah, Dr. Razik ke saya ke, kan? Sebab itulah macam saya terkejut, skor camp tinggi tapi bila final tu sangat-sangat rendah, so that really affect the total marks, okay? So grade will be affected juga lah, okay? Okay, I think kalau dah faham, that's good. Okay. Alright, so okay, kita start our first lecture. Okay, first kita akan go for what is agriculture lah. Alright, the basic and understanding of agriculture. Right, what does the terms means agriculture. Kenapa timbulnya agriculture, kenapa timbulnya perkataan agriculture tu, right? So what the necessary characteristic that are needed untuk diperluaskan menjadi terms agriculture, right? The science of agriculture is the science of practice of farming, including cultivation of the soil for the growing crops and the rearing of animals to provide food, wool, and other products. Okay, start approximately 10,000 years back, the beginning of Neolithic area. Okay, so change from nomadic culture to sedentary. Okay, so the question is, what leads to this transition? Okay, from nomadic to sedentary. Okay, mesti ada something yang lead to this transition. Alright, what makes human could remain at the same site for a long period of times? Okay, thus create centers of activities that eventually would become cities and countries. Okay, that is plant propagation. Okay, plant propagation is a technique to propagate plants lah, nama propagation, right? So when the humans 10 years back, right, dia tahu untuk reproduce, okay, plants, mainly food plants lah, okay. So dari situ dia dah akan bermula tukar pada nomadic to sedentary, alright. If you go and Google, no Google, you go to YouTube, you can watch a video like the, the beginning of this civilization in the Middle East, right? Dia akan kita tahu yang Iraq tu, kawasan Iraq tu 10,000 years ago was the start of civilization, right? So start of civilization ni dia start nomadic tu jadi sedentary, dia start ada buat pertanian. So bila dia buat pertanian, so of course dia tahu how to propagate, okay, the plants lah, right? They start predict the monsoon ataupun the seasons, right? And then start they start knowing, okay, the nature of the soil, right? And then they start to have structure in the community, right? Kan ada leaders, okay, ada not rabi, macam ketua agama like that lah, okay. So the factors that contribute all these environments, right, adalah plant propagation. Okay, kalau dia orang tak tahu how to propagate plants, they didn't adopt sedentary ataupun settlements, permanent settlements, so takkan ada words agriculture lah, right? Dia panggil nomadic culture. So 5 fundamental activities in agriculture adalah plant selection, right? Selecting or developing specific kind of plants. And then bila you select and then you do plant propagation, it means that the communities, the people in the community know how to multiply plants and preserving the unique qualities, okay? And then the crop production, growing plants under more controlled condition for maximum yield. Control condition ni not necessarily be the glass house condition lah. Alright, control condition means that you they took care of the irrigation system, they make sure the water flowing sufficiently to the crops, okay, and then they know how to reduce the pest attack, right, the disease, okay. Then crop handling and storage, preserving crops products for long-term usage and transport to other areas. Okay, and then bila one city has develops, right, and then mungkin ada satu lagi tempat akan ada juga city yang develops, right, and then waktu tu dia dah start preserving crops for the long-term usage, they export and import, right. And then slowly akan ada military expansion blah blah to later on what was happening lah, right, during the early civilization. Okay. And then food technology, okay, transforming ataupun preserving crops, products for food or other uses. Okay, for example, making bread, okay, pressing oil, preparing wine, okay, dehydration, okay. So these are all the fundamental activities in agriculture. Okay, stage of agriculture developments. Okay, first, hunting and gathering. Okay, you go for agriculture ni not necessarily plants saja, right? Tapi as we go through, kita akan concentrate more on plants lah. But agriculture do not limit your imagination ataupun knowledge. Don't make a boundary into plants sahaja. Agriculture ni involve fisheries, also one of the agriculture sectors, and then livestock. livestock ataupun domestication of animals is also one of the agriculture punya sectors. Alright, hunting and gathering, okay, domestication, the process of selecting specific kind of wild plants and adapting them to human use, right? Depending of the localization, okay, many of the early crops were seed plants, especially barley, rice, wheat, corns, that provide carbohydrate and legumes ataupun that provide proteins lah, right? So these are the staple foods, okay, during the early civilization, macam mana diorang buat, okay, and early crops was barley, rice, wheat, corn lah, because of this, these were the main source of the carbohydrate, right? So bila, for example, wheat, okay, dia tak, the first earliest punya stage, of course dia akan nomadic, right, nomadic, and then dia jumpa like macam pokok-pokok lalang, something like that, and then they found that it can be used, wheat, okay, so they use the wheat, okay, and then bila dia tahu wheat, yes, oh sorry, saya lambat juga, nampak, okay. Okay, we are in actually on this slide. Okay. So an early stage of developments of the agriculture, one of it adalah dia kan they adopt the practices nomadic, right? And then slowly, for example, at one point mungkin it could be dia jumpa pokok yang agak pelik, and then bila they investigate ke, and then they check, dia boleh digunakan, can be consumed, right? So bila dia tahu pokok tu ada kat situ, must be that the soil is okay and suitable for growing that plants. I mean, in this case, for example, wheat, right? And then they start to buat macam tadi lah. They start to preserving, okay, they start to, okay, for example, when they harvested, and then they allocate some of the harvest untuk the next round of growing lah, right? Dia always ada try and error, right? Mungkin bila dia tanam balik tu waktu winter, for example, dia tak hidup, and then dia start different season, right? It always try and error. Okay, tapi slowly that develops into a knowledge, alright? And then this knowledge will pass through from one generation to other generation, right? That is plant propagation lah, how they propagate. So propagation ni is plant propagation is the reproduction ataupun reproduce pokok yang kita nak. Plant propagation is not only apa yang biasa kita tengok, propagate plant from batang, okay, from daun, something like that, okay. As long as you are trying to reproduce, so that is propagation, okay. Highly desirable single plants of certain species, such as grape, fig, olive, and blah blah blah, could be selected directly from wide population and fixed through vegetative propagation. Okay. Domestication of fruit plants such as apple, pear, blah 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 blah, occur when the discovery of grafting methods also attracted with the species. Okay. This is how the domestication happens lah. Okay. So bila for example for grape, fig, olive, pomegranate, potato yang banana ni, of course ada try and error. Okay, bila they try to domesticate. Bila domesticate ni means that when they found during the hunting and then gathering, for example, they found pokok figs white. Okay, so dia balik, alright, dia mungkin tanam from the seed. Kalau seed tak okay, and then they go, and then they went back and then get the vegetative part, okay, the stem for example, and then they try to propagate from the stem. And they found that stem is okay. So this is how the knowledge develops lah over the time for the propagation. Alright, Organization of Human Societies, 7,000 before centuries. Alright, means that like 9,000 years ago. Okay. The initial phase of domestication probably involved plant selection, plant propagation, and plant production. Okay, this is very orang kata paling basic lah, right? Um, they do basic plant selection, plant propagation, and the plant propagation that they discovered, right? Mungkin tak 100% apa yang kita tahu sekarang, but you know, tapi like I said, it's a develops, it's the way how the knowledge develops. Okay, it will always be improved over times. Okay. Early civilization in Egypt and Middle East have shown that the agriculture sectors was well organized to produce food like cereals, vegetable, fruit, taste, fibers, and blah blah. The item for non-agricultural components of society. So Egypt and Middle East, okay. Kalau you go and Google and see on YouTube, the earliest civilization biasanya ada dua, Middle East, okay, kawasan Iraq tu, and then kawasan what call that, Indus Valley, kawasan Indus. If you still remember learning history during Form 4, I'm not sure whether the syllabus have changed or not. Tapi early civilization juga terdapat pada kawasan lembah Indus tu. Okay, kawasan lembah Indus ni kawasan between Pakistan and India sekarang ni lah. Okay, memang dah ada civilization kat situ. It was like 10,000 yang kat situ dalam 4,000 or 5,000 years back lah, before centuries. Okay, and then tapi kalau yang permanent, yang agriculture punya, the earliest civilization yang well known adalah kawasan Middle East, kawasan di mana ancient punya governments had been set up lah, right? Ada government Assyrians, Babylons, okay, Akkadians, okay. So dia biasanya tertumpu kat kawasan tu lah. Kalau you look in the history of Nabi Yunus, right, pun kat kawasan tu juga. Dia kawasan di kawasan sungai Teluk between Arab Saudi tu dengan Iraq tu. If you see it on the maps, ada kawasan kat situ lah. Senang cerita kawasan Iraq lah. Sebab tu Iraq waktu perang US attack the Iraq 20 years back, okay, tahun 2000 macam tu, banyak gila dia punya artifacts memang hancur lah, kena bom. So it was like a loss jugalah. Sebab early civilization punya peninggalan, artifacts for example, dah memang dah rosak lah after bombing. Early Chinese writings indicate the knowledge of crafting, layering, and other techniques, although rice and millet were the principle of food source. Okay, this is what happens during the ancient times, 7,000 years back. And then we go to Greek and Romans times. Okay, again, if you go and read history, the Romans started before 500, around 500 before centuries. Okay, and then during the 2 years after that adalah tamadun Greek, Alexander the Great, 300 years before century. Okay, before century means that the year of the Jesus was born, Nabi Isa was born. Okay, so Greek and Roman at these times, people dah macam agak bertamadun sikit, macam you tengok cerita Roman lah. Alright, so between 500 to 1000 500 BC to 1000 AD 1000 AD ni 1000 years ago lah. After 1000 AD ni 1000 after Jesus was born ataupun ascended to the heaven. The technique that we must know than today, okay, control of lands, agriculture surplus was the key to power and wealth. Okay, these times keluar adalah landlord, alright, ada nobles, alright, ada lord, ada raja, right? So waktu tu memang tak ada orang kan panggil industri lagi lah, regulasi industri tak ada lagi lah, right? So apa-apa pun mostly adalah agriculture, right? How to control the people, how to control to the netizen, how to control the population is by controlling the agriculture punya sectors lah, right? Macam landlord, kita panggil feudals punya way of governments, right? Ada landlord, okay, ada tuan tanah, right? So this is how they control the people and remain in power and wealth. Small and large farm existed, olive oil and wine were exported and grain were imported. Vegetables were grown near to the home as were many fruits. Advanced ornamental gardening was developed by Romans. Okay. Ni up to 1000 years ago. And then medieval periods, okay, 700 AD to 1500 AD, I mean 500 tahun yang lalu lah. Okay. Society was organized around large estate, manor house, castle with landlords providing protection. Equally important were the monasteries that acted as independent agricultural and industrial organization and preserve a great deal of the written and unwritten knowledge. Okay. In both kind of institution, aspiration develops amongst those involved in production of cereals, okay, grown extensively in a large field, okay, vegetable and blah blah blah. Okay, ada yang tak, means that ada yang experts on preserving food, right? The production of cereals macam sekarang lah. Contoh kita ada plant breeders, kita ada plant physiologists, we know that we have agronomists, we have molecular biology. So ada inspiration develops amongst the people involved in this agriculture lah. Alright, and then the end of the medieval periods, medieval ni zaman pertengahan, medieval period ni zaman kegelapan dan zaman orang kata enlightenment, okay, if you learn history again. And the beginning of modern Europe brought a shift from a subsistence existence to a market economy and emergence of land ownership. In Western Europe, both large landowners and owners of small individual plots emerged. The Western Europe, the shift was toward large wealthy estate with the population being largely served. In this period, the specific skill and knowledge of plant propagator were possessed by specific individuals. Okay, these skills considered, okay, during this time, these skills considered as trade secrets were passed from father to son or to specific individuals. So it's a trade secret. It's like macam nowadays if you have like a patents lah, right? The secret recipe of your your ingredients, okay, so that you can make money from that, okay. So this happen also in the plant propagation techniques, okay. Nowadays kita boleh panggil dalam bidang plant breeding lah. For example, how are you going to produce seedless tembikai, right? And then seedless apple, okay. These are the techniques, okay, which 100 years ago dia jadi satu benda yang secret lah, right? But nowadays is siapa-siapa boleh belajar and now knowledge is just on your fingertips. Often this knowledge was accompanied by superstition and sometimes attained religious significance. And then we go on the exploration, science and learning part, okay, of the plant propagation. We have learned, okay, we learn some of the history, how the propagation, how the civilization, especially in agriculture, develops. So now we go the exploration and science and learning behind the plant propagation. Plant exchange, the movement of plants from their place of origin to the place of use. Okay, not only did the range of plants available for food, medicine, industrial usage, and gardening expand, but plant propagation methods to reproduce them were. So means that um, plant exchange ni you introduce okay the plants from the origin, the native place, okay, where they were originated, right? And then to a new place, right? You study them, you means the study ni you try to acclimatize them, you try to adapt them to a new environment, okay, for your own use, okay. And also because of new environments, okay, so probably you have to optimize, all right, the methods ataupun the way how to reproduce the plants back for the next cycle of use, okay. Early movements of usable plants often followed by military expansion into different countries when the invading soldier brought plants from his home country into a new land. Okay, dia boleh jadi dua. Sometimes the invaders bring the original plants from his home country, and then back to a new land where they just occupied. Ataupun dia ambil satu pokok yang baru tempat satu land that they have just occupied and then bring back to their home. Okay. And then conversely, returning soldiers introduced to the homeland new plants that they found while on the military campaign. So this is what I've just talked. Okay. Dia bawa daripada pokok sendiri pergi keluar. Alright. And then daripada luar and then bring back home to the country. Sometimes bukan apa, contoh katakanlah you pergi travel to Europe kan, for example, you study overseas. Okay, in the end of the day, you mesti nak terfikir contoh you terfikir, teringat nak nasi lemak, alright? You don't have nasi lemak kat luar, alright? Macam mana nak buat nasi lemak? You akan try cari for daun pandan, for example, for nasi lemak, for the good nasi lemak lah, and also santan, right? Santan tu tak boleh lah. Santan tu kita boleh cari, kita boleh substitute with the susu cair, tapi for the daun pandan tu, the smell of the fragrance of the daun pandan tu, of course you need to have the original. So mungkin for the sake of the arguments, for the sake of the learnings, okay, mungkin you akan try tanam pokok daun pandan tu kat Europe, for example, if you were a soldier, okay, katakanlah. So this is what was happening, okay, 100 years ago. Continent to continent, the voyage of Columbus opened the world to exploration and interchange of plant materials such food staples, potatoes, tomatoes, bean, corn, squash, blah 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 blah. That all become available to Europe in 16th to 7th centuries after voyage to the New World. Okay, New World ni the US lah, right? The US and the northern US or the northern US, probably that time was Canada. Okay. In addition to edible crops, new and exotic plants were being sought out for introduction. Alright, centers of learning in which scientific investigation began on all aspects of biological and physical work were established in many countries. So not necessarily pada awal-awal of the propagation tu, and according to the history, it mainly about how to remain survive, means that they have to adapt they have to improve their agriculture punya practice, okay. Tak diberitahu sangat the record for ornamental, for example, right? I didn't find the records ataupun knowledge ataupun notes, okay, during the earlier civilization. They also focus on how to propagate the ornamental, alright. So mungkin tak berlaku waktu tu, but over the times, okay, to 300 to 300 years ago, okay, dah start for orang kata extensively lah, secara meluas lah, right? Pokok exotic plants, okay? For example, pokok ornamental, pokok bunga, bla bla macam tu. Linnaeus established the binomial system of nomenclature, and botanists began to catalogue the plant of the world. Okay, exploration trips were initiated where the primary mission was plant introduction, such as voyage to Captain Cook in 1768. Okay, explorers Sir Joseph Banks and Francis Mason who brought large numbers of exotic plants to England, and the Royal Botanic Garden established at Kew outside of London. Alright, so the Royal Botanic Garden at kat Kew ni still exists kat London. Okay, kalau if you are true botanist, okay, I got a friends of mine buat PhD on botany, alright. Dia pun ada peluang pergi ke Kew Botanic Garden, orang kata one of the earliest botanic garden and complete botanic garden during modern time lah. Okay, so in the modern time. So another example, for example, kat Malaysia, we didn't have, alright, pokok kelapa sawit. We didn't have pokok getah, but was introduced by the British into our land. Okay, so sebab tu kita ada pokok getah, mana kita ada pokok kelapa sawit. Right, it was introduced from Africa. Okay, so ditanam kat Malaysia. So it's one of the exploration science and learning lah. So exploration, the British explore British botanist, for example, explore tumbuhan yang ada pada Afrika, right? And then dia bawa lah few seeds, okay, masuk kat Malaysia, and dia tanam, dia nampak okay, and then slowly science develops, and then we learn. Okay, this is how it goes. Okay, Nadal Watts, a London physician and amateur horticulturist, invented the Warden case early in 18. Okay, one of the earliest form of glass house. Okay. And then scientific and horticulture literature. Okay, remember waktu ni dia dah start botanists began to catalog, okay, do the catalog. Okay, they found one species, for example, they study the stem, the leaves, right, the morphology of the leaf, the anatomy of the leaf, okay, the morphology of the stem, root, and blah blah blah, right? So they do the catalogs so that it's like a record, okay, of any species that they found. And then scientific horticulture literature, this is just more organized way of collecting the knowledge ataupun preserving the knowledge, alright, into a proper way of, orang kata, preservation lah. Kita panggil horticulture literature. The first important written works on agriculture, plant medicinal uses, and propagation that shaped Western society came from the early Greek, Roman, Arab writers between 300 BC to AD 2. Although many works were undoubtedly lost, many survive today because they were preserved in Arab libraries and passed on through medieval monasteries. Following the invention of the printing press in 1436, there were resurgence in the production of books called herbals, okay, describing and illustrating plants with medicinal properties. Much of the information came from the older 1st century Greek literature, especially Dioscorides. Okay, it's actually buku from Greek and Roman ni, they preserve the knowledge, preserved because of the translation into Arab punya civilization, okay, by Arab punya botanist. So banyak je sebenarnya contoh, not only preserve the knowledge, tapi dia improve the knowledge as well. Dan sebab tu kalau you tengok zaman zaman kegemilangan orang Islam, right? Dia before they develop their own theory ataupun knowledge, they always refer to the buku-buku lama lah, buku-buku lama yang sebelum ni dah dikaji oleh tamadun lain lah. For example, coming from the Greek. Okay, and then bila dia dapat basic and fundamentals the idea ataupun the fundamental knowledge from the older books, then they start to experimenting. Okay, it's actually follow or not with the Quran, for example. Alright, and then dia tengok, and then dia bila jumpa a new result atau discovery, so dia jadi dia punya knowledge lah. This is how the knowledge improve. For example, Ibnu Haytham, if I remember correctly, kalau zaman sebelum dia kata mata kita yang mengeluarkan cahaya, sorry, mata kita yang memantulkan cahaya so that we can see everything, right, in front of our eyes lah. Tapi Ibnu Haytham yang suggest that it's not our eyes but the reflection of the light from the object masuk kat mata kita, dan baru kita nampak apa barang yang kita lihat tu. So this is a new improved theory after experimentation using the previous knowledge developed by Greek or Romans, something like that. Okay, so the same goes for the plant propagation punya knowledge. Okay, many survive today because of they were preserved in Arab punya libraries and passed on through medieval monasteries. And then bila ada expansion, alright, ada interaction between empires, and then kat situ juga ada exchange of the technology and knowledge. Sama juga during the Tang Dynasty dalam tahun 700 something lah, 700 Masihi something, right? At that time, orang Islam punya empire is expanding, alright, sampai kat Timur Tengah, I think dalam Xinjiang, something like that. Nowadays is Xinjiang ataupun Turkmenistan if you go and see on the maps. So waktu tu China was a big empire as well under Tang Dynasty. So ada banyak kali peperangan, and then the technology ataupun the knowledge from Tang punya civilization, Chinese punya civilization, especially making paper, okay, daripada pokok, okay, pembuatan kertas daripada dinasti Tang, daripada Chinese punya civilization, dia punya knowledge ditransfer tu dalam orang Islam punya tamadun lah, dalam orang Islam punya empire. Okay, actually cara pembuatan kertas tu sangat dilindungi. I mean the empire, okay, the empire was trying as they could to prevent the knowledge from going outside from the empire. I mean the making of paper, okay, the invention of paper lah. Tapi bila dia selalu bergaduh, berperang, at the end of the day dia akan knowledge transfer tu akan berlaku jugalah macam mana pun. Okay, these are some of the techniques of plant propagation. Okay, this illustration you can see it later. And now the development of nursery. The concept of nursery, where plants are propagated to be transplanted to their permanent site, either as part of agriculture unit or to be sold to others, has likely been a part of agriculture since its beginning. Nevertheless, the development of commercial nurseries is probably something that has developed largely within the recent area. Most agronomic crops, wheat, corn, and many vegetables were grown by seeds. The portion of seed were retained each year to supply the seed for the next cycle. In region with cold winter, the vegetables and flowers in protected structures and later transplanting to the open was an important part of production. Okay. So because doing so extended the length of the growing season. So The development nurseries is actually started since its beginning. I mean, the early civilization. Okay, like I said, um, people probably previous before that memang adapt nomadic. So when they, for example, during the nomadic punya culture, suddenly probably dia sampai ke kawasan yang sangat subur, okay, they look what is this, and then like mungkin wheat, okay, bila wheat, and then like I said, there's it take years actually, tapi for the sake of the explanation, alright, I just set it briefly. Dia jumpa, okay, dia tengok, okay, dia boleh makan, and then kita mungkin boleh tanam dia balik kawasan tempat yang sama sebab it can bear the plants there, so means that pokok ni tanah dia sesuai for these types of plants, and the type of plant kita boleh makan, right? So they start, bila dia harvest for the first time, they said, okay, we need to allocate, we need to save some of the seed, okay, some of the harvest, so that we can grow them back. We try growing them, okay, so and then it start growing, and then that's how happens lah. That is how it was happens, and then during the time slowly it may take years, right, dia akan ada nursery sendiri. Mungkin not the nursery you imagine today, tapi mungkin some sort of simple nursery, I do not know, right? Tapi it has been part of agriculture from its beginning. Okay, so waktu tu kebanyakannya untuk survival lah. So nowadays, okay, in recent times, okay, in the modern times, kita dah buat nursery for the sake of kita nak berniaga lah, to get money from that, alright, to get profit from that. The numbers of important nurseries existed in France during 16th to 7th centuries and eventually throughout Europe. Okay, for example, Jane had a gardener grew as early as 1366. The first glass house was built in 1598. The Velmorin family established a seed house and nursery business, which was maintained through 7 generations. And then modern plant propagation industry. The present day plant propagation industry is large and complex, involve not only the group that multiplies plant for sale and distribution, but also large group of industry that provide service, sell products, involved in regulation, provide consultation, carries on research, or involved in teaching. Right, for example, like say macam pokok breeding company lah. It's not breeding company. If you had a breeding company, alright, you are, of course, you are the you are kind of the research center. Okay, you do the research on breedings. All right, you also can be part of the consultation to other people, to other company, for example. All right, because of there are too many breeding companies, agriculture companies, all right, that do the propagation. Okay, you make profit from that. Right, slowly ada authority yang draft ataupun yang enforce the new regulation that regulates all this kind of business lah. Right, so the propagation industry is no longer for the sake of the survival rate saja, for the survival purpose only lah, right? So now you can even listed the company, propagation company, in stock exchange, stock market, for example, right? So now this is different. The key person within this complex is the plant propagator who possess the knowledge and skill either to perform or to supervise the essential propagation tasks for specific plants. Okay, so for example, the bromeliad industry. Bromeliad industry ni pokok bromeliad, pokok nenas, keluarga nenas. Okay, not nenas ni is under bromeliad family. Bromeliad family ni memang luas, and then termasuk biasanya orang suka pada dia punya bunga, and then dia punya bentuk, and then the colours. Okay, even though bromeliads ni adalah tropical adapted plants, right, tapi the most country that export this kind of plants adalah negara uh, Holland, if I'm not mistaken. So they have they have designed their own glass house, right, to have a mimic environments to mimic environments of the tropical countries. So they do the research, they do investments, do on research, propagation, right? And then the techniques, okay, the secret behind the propagation, you know, the propagation is not simply as usually produced, okay? You try to mix up few species into one new species, you try to produce a new varieties, okay, you try to to produce a new form of plants, okay, it involves propagation, right? It's one of the propagation. So the, the company can get profit from that. Okay. Sebab tu dia kata the key person within this complex is a plant propagator. Alright, it's a key person who hold the secret recipe of the propagation techniques, alright, to produce any unique plants lah. For example, bromeliads in Netherlands. Bromeliad industry ni takes apa ni can generate profit up to billions dollar. In 1951, the Plant Propagator Society was established to provide the nursery profession with knowledge and research support. Okay, so we go for the biology of propagation. The natural world is covered by population of many different kinds of plants that have evolved over millions of times. We identify this as a species, although there are other division that will be described in this text. Okay. The population can be more or less maintained themselves from generation to generation because of their natural genetics characteristic. If not, they evolve into other variants or become extinct. Okay. Propagation is not always successful. Okay. According to the theory, it might be yes. Okay. When we do it hands-on, probably it's not. Okay. For example, one species you trying to propagate to with the other species, okay, mungkin dia okay, mungkin dia sukses, mungkin dia fail, alright. So mungkin dia tak ada peluang langsung, okay. So even though kalau you take a plant species from originate from one place, right? Was originally from one place, and then you bring to a new environment. Okay, of course, the adaptation will take place. Okay, many adjustment will occur in that plants because the plants need to adjust themselves, need to adapt themselves into new environments. They need to be there for years, so they have to change their for example, the structure, morphology, and something like that. And then when they produce seeds, all right, the new seeds will carry the new set of inheritance from the new set of inheritance ataupun new set of characteristic from the parent plants that have already been adapted into new environment. For example, you take one species from Europe and then you bring here, right? You grow them and then dia menghasilkan seeds ataupun progeny. Right, the progeny itu dia akan bawa a new characteristic from the mother lah yang have been here, right? Dia takkan bawa, dia bukan yang sebelum punya lah. Okay. Sebelum punya itu will be different to the punya siblings lah, for example dalam kawasan yang originally they been growing ataupun dia tok nenek dia dua orang dulu kat mana. Right. Plant propagation and plant breeding both involve genetic selection. The role of the plant breeder is to recreate patterns of genetic variation in many forms from which to select new kinds of plant of useful to humans. So you ada when you do propagation or reproduction, mesti you ada you want to improve when you do improvements, you are planning to improve the plants. Of course, you will try and errors. For example, few varieties with few species, and then you for example cross pollinate with other varieties and then see whether they grow or not. All right, and then when you do that, of course, you are there's some things that you want from there is something that you want from one plant, okay, with yang tak ada dalam pokok yang tersedia ada yang kita mungkin kita tanam secara meluas. For example, pokok padi, alright, dia pokok padi sekarang ni for example tak ada they are very susceptible. They don't tolerate they do not tolerate to the infestation. Okay, so mungkin ada satu pokok padi yang lain yang sangat tolerance kepada infestation, tapi hasil dia sikit, and then you crossbreed. It is also propagation, and then you crossbreed, right? And ini yang kita katakan ada pattern of genetic variation, yang you ada genetic characteristic yang membawa kepada phenotype tertentu, alright? So that this a new combined variety, dia akan more useful to you, to humans. Okay? The role of the plant propagator on the other hand is to multiply these selected cultivars. Okay, the plant breeders tadi, like I said, you select this plant, and then you try this plant, kahwinkan dengan this plants, okay. Because of what? Because you have got the understanding of the genetic backgrounds. Okay, plant propagator pula dia akan just reproduce lah, dia multiply. So itu ada dalam tak banyak lagi kot punya slide. Biological life cycle in plants. Ada few terms have been generated, alright, to explain the life cycle in plants. Okay, we have annuals, biennials, perennials, alright. So annuals are plants that complete the entire sequence from germination to seed dissemination and death in one growing season. Technically monocopic, die after reproducing. However, annual also refer to plants that may be perennial in mild climates. Okay, tak apa. So means that bila you grow them and then they reproduce, hasilkan biji benih dan mati. Okay. Biennials adalah plants that require 2 growing season. Alright, for example, katakanlah you grow a plant, okay, ada grow biennials plants. Okay, the first year dia hanya pergi kepada vegetative saja. Alright, and then terdapat signal, for example winter, that trigger them to flowering in the second year. Right, so biennials, okay, 2 growing season ataupun biennial ni 2 pusing dah lah. Right. Like I said, these plants usually needs a period of cold weather for vernalization of the shoot meristem before they can become reproductive. Ada signal from the cold temperature, right? We learn vernalization during plant physiology, right? Ada low temperature that triggered the meristems, okay? And then meristems will be modified into flowering, okay? So the first year mungkin vegetative saja, alright, and then juvenile, and then ada trigger and signal from the low temperature, and then it will change to reproductive stage. And after reproductive stage tu akan ada fertilization and ada fruit developing, okay, and then producing seed and then die. Perennials, plants that live for more than 2 years and repeat the vegetative reproductive cycle annually. Pokok durian, senang. Herbaceous perennials produce shoot that grow durian one season and die. Okay, jap. Saya balik. Perennial cycle tends to be related to the seasonal cycles of warm cold temperature climate or wet dry periods, tropical climate. Betul lah. Sama je kalau pokok durian dry periods, kalau pokok kat UK, pokok temperate, pokok apple, right? Herbaceous perennials are the produce shoot that grow during one season and die back during the winter or period of drought. It may take herbaceous perennials several growing cycles before they become reproductive. And they may not flower every year, depending on the plant's accumulation of resource during growing cycle. Plants survive during adverse conditions and specialize underground structure with root and crown and remain perennials. For example, bulbs, corn, rhizomes, tubers are included in this group. Woody perennials develop above ground. Okay. Ketua increasingly for apical and sebab okay. Woody. Dia pun lebih kurang pokok durian jugalah tadi. Cuma perennial ni pokok tinggi, pokok rendah, pokok yang tak apa, tak batang berkayu ataupun batang lembut. Okay. Cuma yang woody plant ni more specific woody. The life cycle of seedling cultivars in propagation, an individual plants that develops from a seed are referred to as seedling, whether it is annual, biennial, herbaceous, perennials, or weed perennials. Life cycle of seeding got 4: embryonic, juvenile, transition, and adult. Embryonic is the phase begin with the formation of a zygote. Okay, the cell grows into an embryo. Juvenile cell division is concentrated in the root tips, shoot tips, and axillary growing points. It increased volumes of the root and shoot the new nodes, but still cannot flower yet. So means that cell division and expansion is actively happening during this time, right? They divide and then they expand. They divide, they elongation, and then they expand. Cell division, expansion, and differentiation. Okay, so divide, they expand, membesar, and then differentiation. Itu different tissue lah. Okay, and actively happening during the juvenile. And then transition, growth tend to decrease as the plants enter the reproductive period when flowering occurs. So the photosynthesis product will be no longer or limited allocation from the photosynthesis product will be used for the vegetative. Alright. Yang selebihnya, the majority of the carbohydrate ataupun sugar will be used for the reproductive organs like flowers, okay, and then slowly fruits, okay, ataupun grain. Adult and mature shoot meristem have the potential to develop flower buds and the plants produce flower, fruit and seeds. Okay, transition, okay, and then adult ataupun mature, dia akan keluarkan flowers and then fruits and then seed lah. Okay. Apomixis is a natural reproductive process by some species of plants in which the embryo develop directly from specific vegetative cells of some part of the reproductive structure that has not undergone meiosis. Same as the seedling cycle, except the embryo is essentially a clone since it is produced as a result of mitosis and is asexual. Okay, ini senang involve mitosis lah ataupun asexual. Contoh daripada batang, dia tak involve meiosis. Clonal growth and developments of a plant when propagated vegetatively from a particular propagule of an individual plant. A clone originated by vegetative propagation from individual plants using various types of vegetative propagules. Alright, so so ni clone ni adalah benda yang sama karakteristik lah semua. Contoh satu plant, then you ambil batang dia, and then you propagate, and that's going to be clone. Okay. Ayat panjang tapi simple. Genetic basis for plant propagation. Okay, you've got to familiarize with some important terms, which is genes, DNA, chromosome. Gene is a hereditary unit of inheritance known to be composed of specific arrangement of nucleotides to make a generic code, what we call DNA. DNA is the basic biochemical compound that makes up the genes. Right? Chromosome structure within the nucleus of a cell that contains the genes. Gene is a recipe of the genes is the ultimate recipe ataupun coding. Okay, what recipe atau the genes is a set of unique ingredients, okay, for any recipes. Okay, so for plant breeders, they particularly molecular plant breeders, okay, dia akan check DNA ni lah. Dia check DNA ni produce what proteins. Do we need these proteins or we have to kick out these proteins? If we want to kick out the proteins, we need to kick out the DNA. Okay, or we want these proteins. We want these proteins in our new variety so that our new variety will produce a new beautiful colors. Okay, kalau original mungkin jadi original is pale putih. Okay, we want purple color in our new varieties, in our flowers. So you have to study the pathway ataupun the DNA that encodes the proteins that produce the purple colors. Okay. So cell division, mitosis, the special kind of cell division that result in vegetative propagation ada GS, G1, S and G2. Ni kita panggil interphase. And then kita ada mitosis. Mitosis ni normal lah, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. Right? G1 will enter the S and then will enter the G2 stage before it goes for mitosis. After mitosis, then cytokinesis. Pembagian cytoplasm. Okay. This one is mitosis. Mitosis simple eh. And then ada meiosis. Meiosis happens during the embryo development. Ada two stages, meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Meiosis 1 dia akan from one cell becomes 2, meiosis 2 dia akan meiosis 1 akan divide menjadi 2 cells and then meiosis 2 from 2 becomes 4. Jadi haploids ataupun gametes. Simple je. For the mitosis and meiosis will be covered in details later by Dr. Razik lah, because he's expert on this particular subject topic. Okay. Okay. Finally we done. Habis lecture kita dah habis. And then for the labs, I've been told by Dr. Razik we're going to have face-to-face practical lab. So saya nak tanya, kebanyakan korang ada memang dah balik ke Mahalah kan? Dah. So I'm planning to have our first lab next week. Okay, I think same days. You boleh double check balik lah. I think the same days on the Tuesday kita buat petang for the first lab. Okay, next week lah. And then assignment saya akan masukkan mungkin hari ni. So saya masukkan set assignment. Okay, assignment tu a bit general lah. Okay, a bit cendol. So I think you can boleh take action lah. Saya bagi masa sikit untuk bagi for the submission, right? Tapi saya akan upload secepat mungkin for the assignment. For the I think tadi presentation by Dr. Razik kot saya ingat. So ada apa-apa? Kalau tak ada apa-apa, kita boleh tutup majlis kita lah. So tak ada apa-apa
Tak ada.
Alright.
No.
Okay. So if that's so, kita tutup dengan kita punya lecture dengan tasbih awal dengan surah Wal-Asr lah. So sekian.
Doktor.
Alright.
Thank you, Doktor.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, Doktor. Thank you, Doktor.
Bye.
Thank you, Doktor. Thank you.
Hmm.